Before I go on to the main subject of today's video, you've got to commend the under 21s for their absolutely gallant efforts in the EFL Trophy on Tuesday night when they played Wycombe Wanderers in the final 16, in the last 16 game to go through to the next round. They lost 2-1, but they played superbly well. They could hold their heads up high. They faced a Wycombe Wanderers side who got an early goal and then sort of went 2-0 up by half time. But the under 21s came out all guns blazing in the second half and pulled a fantastic goal back from Gideon Kadua. Who was the under 18s captain last season and now is a regular for the under 21s this season. He scored a superb goal just inside the 18-yard box. And it was part of an onslaught to try and get the under 21s back into the game. And to be quite honest with you, with their efforts, right up until the last minute, they probably deserved to have gotten an equaliser. They had a couple of calls for penalty shouts as well, with some dubious defending from Wycombe. But, you know, it wasn't to be. But they can really hold their heads up high, the under 21s, because they've had a superb run in this competition, playing lower league teams, beating, 4 teams to get to this round. And well done to them. It ends, an unbeaten run of 16 games, which is another shame as well. But I think they're going to be buoyed by the performance that they put in this game against Wycombe, and they'll stand them in good stead for the rest of the season. They're back in action again next Monday in Premier League 2 when they play West Bromwich Albion away. So that aside, what am I going to talk about in this particular show? Well, primarily as to what David Moyes is planning to do for the second half of this season. Now, it's going to be a real test, isn't it, for West Ham United? Because up until the end of December, we were cock-a-hoop with what we'd achieved, 6 in the league, through to the last 16 of the Europa League as well. And everything was looking pretty good. And then one game seemed to have changed the whole complexion of how we're all feeling. As we know, we lost several players to injury in that game on Sunday against Bristol City. That was on top of some of the other injuries that we had already sustained, on top of the AFCON coming and taking 2 players away, and on top of a couple of players not wanting to be at West Ham. How it's all changed in just a very short space of time. So let's bring you an update on the actual injuries themselves. So Jarrod Bowen has not had a scan on his ankle yet because the swelling around the ankle is quite severe. And we've got to wait until that swelling goes down before the scan takes place. Now, the swelling itself seems to suggest that this is pretty serious. Now, how long might he be out for? Well, it really all depends on really the severity of the injury. If it's a grade 1 lateral ankle sprain, where there's kind of damage outside of the ankle, ligament damage outside of the ankle, then that's a common sprain to get, and that may take up to about a month to heal. If it's a grade 2, which is a slight tear, then that could take a couple of months. And if it's really serious, a grade 3, where it's a full tear, which may or may not need surgery, then you're looking at least 3 or 4 months out for that as well. We don't know, as I said, what level of the sprain damage is. But given that the swelling is so bad, as I said, it could sound like it's at least a level 2 issue, which means that he could be out for a couple of months, maybe not back until early March. That really could be an absolute disaster for West Ham. As we know, Lucas Paquetá, we now know he's actually out for about a month. He's seen a specialist tonight. His own physio specialist has flown in to check on the injury, which is a calf injury. And it looks as if Paquetá will be out certainly for the rest of January. All right, we don't have that many games. We still have the replay. We've still got Sheffield United. And if we win the replay, we've got either Nottingham Forest or Blackpool in the FA Cup in the fourth round. So he's going to miss all those games, and he could miss the early games in February as well. Now, we know we don't have Mohamed Kudus because he's on AFCON duty, but he's also got an injury, a mild hamstring injury that he's been having nursed over in Accra in Ghana. Now, apparently, he's going to be joining the Ghanaian national team very soon, probably in the next week. He missed the friendly leading up to AFCON, but it looks like he'll be with the Ghanaian team later on this week or beginning of next week in time for their first game in the AFCON. Now, if Ghana do well, there's a good chance that Kudus could be away from West Ham until around about the 11th of February is when the final takes place. And then, if Ghana are in that, he could be out back not till around about mid-February himself. Another player, but better news this time, is Dinos Mavropanos, who we know went off injured against Bristol City. Now, it was feared that apparently he had crushed ribs, broken ribs, but it doesn't seem to be that way. It looks like it's a lot less serious than that. And it could be that Mavropanos could be back in time for the Bristol City game, the replay, next Tuesday. I'm not sure if he fancies getting roughed up again, but at least it's better news for Mavropanos. And if he doesn't make the Bristol game, it's looking very, very likely that he'll be back available for the Sheffield United game in the Premier League on the following weekend. As for Antonio, well, we know Antonio. He was due to come back. He slipped in training, and he's going to be out for another 6 weeks himself. That's not something it's something you were already aware of. Now, what about some other players? Well, as I mentioned last week, it looks like Naif Aguerd doesn't want to be at West Ham United. If you haven't seen that show, that was I did that show last Wednesday when I talked about Aguerd and the possibility of us going for Max Kilman of Wolverhampton Wanderers as a potential replacement. From what we've now been told, bids would be welcome for Aguerd in this January window, and if we get an offer of £30 million or more, he's gone. Of course, we're going to have to get a replacement, but that £30 million will give us the ability to go in and put a bid in for someone like Kilman. And if we can't get that, then it will be a loan signing for the rest of this season until we can put serious bids in for a permanent replacement in the summer. So if there is interest in Aguerd, we will actually welcome bids for the player. And of course, if you watched the West Ham Weekly on Monday night, you would have heard about Saeed Benrahma, who apparently refused to train and refused to play for West Ham in the game against Bristol City on Sunday. He was on the bench, but apparently he refused to warm up and come off the bench as well. So it's looking like he's also gone off to France now. I don't know how long he's going to be there for. I don't know if he's been given permission to travel there, but it looks as if his days are numbered at West Ham. I said that on Monday as well. And if we get a decent offer, anything from £15 million onwards, he's another player that will be gone in this window. Now, what about some players that we might be looking at potentially getting? Now, I've been told that no bids are close. Nothing looks anywhere near close to getting players in this January transfer window. Of course, Jack Clarke, who I mentioned again on Monday, is a potential target from Sunderland. But another player that's popped up in the last day or two is a loan move for Arsenal's Reiss Nelson. Now, Nelson's a pretty decent player. He's part of the Arsenal youth squad, the academy setup from Arsenal. He's made 83 appearances so far for the senior team, scoring 8 goals with 9 assists. But with heavy investment made in the Arsenal squad over the past season or so, he's found his playing time somewhat limited this season, with only 9 sub-appearances in the Premier League. He's a decent talent, right-footed, who can play on either wing and has been actually more successful as an inverted winger on the left-hand side, something that we need. He possesses good ball control, very decent speed, and at 24 years old, still young enough to grow. Now, it could be that if we go in for him, it'll be a loan to buy deal, or that's what we'd like to have. But I think at this stage, beggars can't be choosers, and we might even just accept, if Arsenal accept to go in for a loan deal, and then without a potential buyout clause at the end of the season. Would he be a better proposition than Ben Rama? Um, well, what it will give us, it will allow when Paquetá comes back from injury, it will allow him to play centrally, so we can have a left-sided player, a more naturally a naturally wide player. Um, it could also help him as a player, give him an opportunity to play more rather than being a bit part player at Arsenal. He can come and be a bit part player for West Ham. But seriously, a loan bid for someone who's a reasonable talent could, elevate his career, give him a push in his own career. His decision making in the final third is certainly much better than Ben Rama's. He's got a good, decent pass on him. He's more confident going forward than Ben Rama. At times we've seen Ben Rama, he doesn't know whether to pass, cross, shoot, and sometimes does none of those at all. But there are other options. Instead of going into the transfer window, there are other options that we could use. For example, we've got squad players where we can put maybe Aaron Cresswell or Ben Johnson out on the left-hand side as a left back. All right, Cresswell, we know, his better days are over. But what that would do, it will allow Emerson to start further forward. Now, Emerson, he's got good pace. He's got good crossing ability. He can beat players with skill. He's already settled in the team. And that could be a change that David Moyes might consider doing, given that the injuries that we have. So rather than going out and trying to bring someone in who may or may not settle quickly or not, he may have the answer already in the squad. So pushing someone like Emerson further forward could be an option for him. But of course, he's going to have to trust either Aaron Cresswell or Ben Johnson to go in at left back. Now, interestingly, Ben Johnson has played reasonably well the last few games that he's played for West Ham. And ironically, given that he's right-footed, he normally does an awful lot better on the left side of defence than he does on the right side of defence. Or, of course, West Ham United or David Moyes could change formation. He could go for a 3-5-2 formation instead. So going with three centre-backs, it would mean that someone like Soufal and Emerson can push up as wing-backs, and then you can fill the midfield with the likes of Souček, Alvarez and Ward-Prowse, and then that would allow you to play two up front, because we know that the players that we've currently got, that strikers, Mbama and Danny Ings, don't do so well when they play as lone strikers. So you could have a formation like this where you have a 3-5-2. When we're defending, we drop to a 5-3-2 or a 5-3-1-1, and then we're attacking, we go into a 3-5-2, 3-5-1-1 formation. Look, we've got Bowen missing, we've got Kudus missing, we've got Paquetá missing, we've got a number of players that's missing. So it's an opportunity, given that a three at the back means that you've got to mainly, and having wing backs means that you've got to lose a midfielder. This is as good a time as any to change the formation, given that we've got three main midfielders missing, that you could actually do something like that. You've still got players on the bench. Okay, you haven't got a lot of options with Fornals and Cornet, but that's when you would then have to bring some youth in to cover some areas in order to be able to play that system. And if you bring youth in, there's one player in particular that could also fill the gaps that we have, and that, of course, is Callum Marshall. He could be elevated into the senior squad, and what better partner for Divin Mbama, if not Danny Ings, than Callum Marshall himself? They know each other from their youth days. Between them, last season in the academy teams, they scored a total of 62 goals in all competitions, and of course, they were both involved in the team that won the under-18s Premier League and also the FA Youth Cup. Both Marshall's game but Marshall's game is not just about scoring goals. This season alone, he's contributed to 54% of all the under-21 goals scored, and in the Premier League 2 itself, 63% direct contributions. That's not bad for an 18-year-old who's only just started playing for the under-21s. He won the Under-21 Player of the Month award in September. He was nominated for it again in October, as well as December. This left-footed Northern Ireland international, he is now a fully fledged Northern Ireland international, is also versatile enough to play in any position across the front line. So whether you play the 4-2-3-1 formation that Moyes normally does, or even if you play a 3-5-2 and keep Emerson at the back, Marshall could slot in on the left-hand side. He's got decent pace. The club are currently negotiating a new deal to keep Marshall a lot longer at West Ham. And there was a suggestion that he might go out on loan in the second half of the season. But now it's been suggested he could be elevated into the senior team because of the injuries that we have. What better opportunity than to play someone who's very much on form for the under-21s in the senior squad? Look, if he was to go out on loan, it would have to be for a team that plays very similar football to the senior team at West Ham. And there are two teams that play counter-attacking football, especially in the Championship, that Marshall could benefit from. One is Ipswich Town and the other is Coventry City. Now, Ipswich don't necessarily need another striker, so it might not be to his advantage to go to a team like that because they've got a quite settled front line. They're pushing for promotion back into the Premier League, so they may not want to tinker too much with another striker, maybe as a backup, but that wouldn't serve Callum Marshall's purposes too much. Whereas Coventry, who are struggling this season in the Championship, may want to have a player like Callum Marshall to give them a bit of a boost and score some very vital goals to help their Championship campaign this season. But for me, why send him out on loan if he's that good, that many people are saying that he is? Then why not bring him straight into the first team? His versatility would be of great benefit to David Moyes. Instead of going out and risking bringing another player in, whether it be on a loan deal or a permanent signing, you've got someone that could potentially offer us a solution from the academy squad. And why not? It's an interesting proposition, but what it means is David Moyes has got to make some decision as to what's going to happen moving forward. All right, we're only 9 days into the transfer window. There's still plenty of time, but soon we're going to have games coming up that we need to fill not only the first team, the first 11, but also the bench as well. And someone like Callum Marshall may relish coming into the first team squad, and who knows? You know, people are saying that they've not seen too much of the best of Divin Mbama so far. Could Callum Marshall be the player that could go above in terms of selection choice? Could go above Mbama? Who knows? It will offer some competition as well. I think it's an interesting option for Moyes to have. So the update news on injuries is not great. Bowen could be out for anything like 2 months or 3 months. Mbama is Kudus is out anyway with the Ghanaian team. Paquetá is going to be missing for about a month. 6 weeks out for Antonio. Agurd apparently doesn't want to be here. There's a lot going on. And we could dip into the transfer market and get some replacements, or we could look at bringing a player like Callum Marshall into the fold and see what he can do. Thank you for watching. Much appreciated. I'll be back again soon with another show. Do hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell notification to give the channel a boost. And I will see you all very soon.